Good evening, everyone. Welcome to the Boyd County Board of Education's regular board meeting, August 25th, 2020. The Board of Education is following the adopted resolution of March 24th, 2020 regarding meetings held during the present state of emergency under KRS 61.840, and this meeting will be conducted in conformity with the procedures set forth in KRS 61.826 for video teleconferencing of meetings. This meeting may be viewed live on YouTube or by going to the Boyd County Public Schools website. We'll now have the roll call. Tammy Pruitt.
Here.
Wendy Stanley.
Here.
Randy Stapleton Jr.
Here.
And Dr. Judy's is still out to illness. Okay, we'll call this meeting to order. Time being 6:03. We'll now have the pledge to the flag.
I pledge allegiance to the
I pledge
flag
allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands,
one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
Okay, we'll now have the reading of board goals. All students will be active, self-motivated, lifelong learners. All students will graduate and demonstrate the skills and the knowledge to support productive citizenship. Do I have a motion to adopt the agenda?
So moved.
Second.
Madam Chair, if I may.
Do I have a motion?
So
Yeah, so
Linda.
moved.
Second.
Ms. Day.
Tammy?
Yeah. Can't you hear me?
All those in favor? Yes.
Just a reminder, there is an addendum onto the agenda.
Yes. Can you all hear me?
Yes, ma'am.
Yeah.
We can hear you, Linda.
Brad? That was like a full minute later. So this is difficult with this technology. Brad, can you take us offline for a moment?
Thank you.
I'm getting ready to have a storm here at my mom and dad, so I don't know if that might do something too.
Yeah, I think around 7 o'clock it's supposed to hit Nashville.
I'm in the big city. So the football and soccer team had practice on the new field or just football?
Football and soccer.
How did they love it?
They loved it.
Yay.
Oh, they're loving it. Linda's having some issues here.
Sorry about that, folks. A little bit of internet problems there, but hopefully we've got those worked out. I think we left off, we had an emotion to adopt the agenda from Tammy and a second from Mindy. We have an addendum to the agenda. Tammy, do you agree to that?
Yes.
Mindy?
Yes.
To add that, okay, thank you. Student and staff presentations. Due to the coronavirus pandemic, there will not be any presentations or recognitions this month. For the request to address the board, we requested that we have some of the reopening committee members and Mr. Bobbitt online with us tonight to discuss the reopening plan as to when that would be. I think we're looking at either September 9th or November 5th. Do we have any committee members with us tonight?
Madam Chair, if I could,
Sure.
before they come on, we have several. I think I invited about 15. Now, some of them are some administrators who are on the meeting for other purposes, but we have several, and I appreciate everyone's attendance. I think most people are here that I invited, so I truly appreciate that. If you wouldn't mind, folks, I think what the board would like to hear from you all, if possible, is your thoughts and cares and concerns about the possibility of reopening on September 28th, or maybe even the possibility of delaying that reopening until a later date. I will start out by apologizing that we did not address this at the last board meeting, and that was my fault. We should have, whenever we made that change based upon the governor's recommendation of moving to the 28th of September, but we did not. So this is our opportunity to address that issue. I think, in fairness to parents and our community out there, that if we can give them a possible date of when we're going to be open. Of course, we all know it's fluid. It's, there's a possibility that could change, but a date would be helpful. I believe, if we narrow it down to the 28th, or we narrow it down to, the first 9 weeks, which I think ends right around the November 5th, or somewhere in between, pending numbers and so forth. I think would be good for our board to do that. So I've invited you all to kind of discuss. Obviously, it's difficult for everyone to discuss it at one time. We can't do that. So if possible, what I'd like to do, if everyone's comfortable with this, I'll start out based upon names that I have here on my sheet, not necessarily across the board, across the computer screen, because that changes so much. It'll zigzag in and out, and I will forget someone. So I'm just going to call upon you all. And again, I apologize if I'm putting you in a tough spot by calling upon you. But I'm going to do that. If you don't have anything to say, or just you'd like to pass until someone else speaks, that's fine too. And I'll try my best to come back to you. If I forget, please let me know, because I've been known to leave people. I do it all the time on my central office and principals meeting. I'll forget someone on my agenda. So bear with me. Sean, we'll go ahead and start out with you. Sean Stewart, he's the principal at the Summit Elementary. What are your thoughts, cares, concerns, and so forth?
First of all, thank you for inviting me. My big concern, I think, is everybody else is, our safety of our kids. But I think what we have planned, and I think we're on plan like 1,034 right now.
Sure.
But I think what we have planned, I think, is as safe as we possibly can be for everybody involved, not just for kids, but for staff and everybody. I think we have looked at every possible scenario and that we possibly could look at. But, you look at the news and you look at all the other schools that are going through it right now, and there's going to be unknowns. And I think at some point, you've got to look and say, okay, are we going to just sit out, or are we going to try this? And nobody knows the answer. That's my, that's where I'm at with it personally, but I'm just the one person here. But I was excited to give it a shot and just show everybody, hey, this is what we can do given this circumstance. And I was ready, but let's see what we can do. That's pretty much where I know I was at and my staff was at. So,
Sean, I have a question for you.
yes, ma'am.
Do you feel that it would be more difficult for the students and the staff to start back, on what I think it's September 28th, Mr. Boblet?
Yes, ma'am.
Or would it be better to keep them out for the first 9 weeks?
If we're going to kind of stay out, I think let's stay out the 9 weeks, just for continuancy, and then go from there. And for grading purposes and different things like that. I think just for the ease of students' minds, parents' minds, and different things like that. Maybe parents will want to get them back sooner, but then who knows? We bring them back on the 28th. A week later, we're out again, and who knows? But at least we might be bringing them back at the start of a 9 weeks. That's just my thought on it.
So just so we're clear, the kids that we're referring to are the kids that chose the NTI.
Yes, ma'am.
Yeah.
The virtual academy children, they have to commit to a full semester. Is that correct?
Yes, ma'am.
Correct.
So, my concern is, and my thoughts are, if we start them on, with the NTI, and then we bring them back, I think we determined it was 12 or 13 days later, Mr. Boblet? If we bring them back into school on September 28th?
Well, NTI will start September 9th. And yes, we will. I'm going to pull up my calendar here and make sure I'm correct on the days. NTI starts on September 9th. Now, we're going to do a 3-day small group setup for each of our schools. We have kids coming in small groups, get their Chromebook if needed, meet their teacher. I think the high school is going to work a schedule, and a highly abbreviated schedule for their kids. And Tom's next to talk, so he can talk a little bit more about that on those 3 days. Then start with the NTI instruction at home on the 14th. So basically, it's about 2 weeks. And then, if we go with what we decide, or what the governor decided on September 28th, is when we would bring them back, full time. And I keep talking about the people that chose in person, which is now NTI, and that's not our virtual academy. The virtual academy kids are that semester commitment.
Right.
So it's roughly 2 weeks that would be on full NTI. We're going to do that small group meeting times and so forth with kids those first 3 days.
Well, I think that, and I won't speak for everyone, but I know I would like to see the kids back in school as quickly as possible,
Sure.
As long as it's safe. But I just felt like that might be difficult for teaching, having 2 weeks of the NTI and then come back, and then the teachers have to pick up where they have been teaching, and then plus the parents have to figure out. Right. And then we might go a week, and then they may be closed again. So, I just.
And I might be contradicting myself. I said for consistency, I want 9 weeks, but personally, I kind of want the 28th just to get them back as quick as possible. But I can see, both views.
Right.
Absolutely.
That's why it's difficult to make this decision.
Exactly.
Yeah. Thank you, Mr. Stewart.
Thank you so much.
And I'm just going to go through each member here. So, and obviously, if some things have been addressed already, you don't have to readdress them if you don't want. Mr. Holbrook.
Thank you, Mr. Bowlett. Can you hear me?
Yes, sir.
Thank you. Good evening, board.
Hey, Mr.
Hello.
Hubbard.
Hey,
I feel like the commercial with Brad Paisley and Peyton Manning when Sean's got Peytonville there, and Brad says, "I concur." It's what I concur, Mr. Stewart, that 9 weeks is the way to go, just for the continuity of the whole thing. This back and forth, it's not good for teachers. It's not good for students or parents trying to plan, going every 2 weeks and trying to make a decision of where you.
You hit
They're
mute,
going to come from.
Mr. Holbrook.
Chromebook check-ins, check-outs. Yes, sir.
Mr. Holbrook, your last couple sentences, you hit the mute button.
I hit mute. Someone tried to call me. They must have seen me on TV and they want my autograph.
That's it. Yeah.
They're calling for autographs.
Well, thank goodness we can't see you. We just see the big T.
You're better off.
Me.
You're better off. I'll give you a sneak peek. How about that? Huh?
I would go with the T, please.
Back, camera's back on. Okay. Camera. These people will quit calling me. No, but I do believe that 9-week commitment's the way to go with NTI, just for consistency, as Sean mentioned, for teachers, for parents, for kids, for administrators, just so parents can have a plan and they can get their child care set up and in place, and know what they're going to do, so that as far as teachers go, they're not grading virtually online NTI work one day and then the next week they're back in person, because it is different. Their teaching method's different. And if we start, the kids come pick up things on the 9th and we do 10 days of NTI, 13 days of NTI, and we start back in person, and like it was said before, we're told to shut down again, and so it's just can be very, very difficult and very challenging for all parties involved. My vote, if I had a vote, if it mattered any, it would be that we go first 9 weeks at least NTI.
Great. Thank you, Mr. Holbrook.
Mr. Bob asked me to speak on the small groups. I've not made this public yet, just trying to wait for the health department, CDC guidelines, to make sure we're meeting everything. But we plan on having, and so far, based on our numbers, we will, with this plan, we will adhere to their guidelines with the percentage or the number of kids in our school. On the 9th, a morning session of 9 to 11:30, we will run an abbreviated schedule. Homeroom will be about 20 minutes, and then every period after that will be about 10 to 15 minutes. And we can run kids through all 8 periods, and that'll be our seniors. The first part of the alphabet, the morning session, second part of the alphabet, the afternoon session, the 12:30 to 3. It takes care of our seniors. We'll do Chromebook checkouts, Google access codes, Remind codes, email access, logins, textbooks. All of that will take place in those classes, but it'll be a very abbreviated schedule. We'll do our juniors, the morning session on the 10th, sophomores, the afternoon session on the 10th, and then our freshmen, we'll divide those up morning and afternoon on the 11th. And once again, we will adhere to the percentage gap, 15% of your student body, or 10 per class. And by doing it that way, that gets all of our students in 3 days. So that we felt that was the best way that met the guidelines that we could possibly do.
That's good.
Yeah, that sounds like a good plan.
Thank you, Mr. Holbrook.
Yes, sir.
Mandy Phillips.
Oh, I got to follow those two after
I know.
so thorough.
luck.
I'm just like, yep. Okay.
Good luck.
As a parent of students, I want my kids in school. I think they learn face to face better. They need to go back to school. We've had enough home time. I'm going to go to work, so they're going to sit here and do NTI. And, I have a senior, it's like pulling teeth to get him to do his NTI. But with that being said, I say my opinion is we don't go back to November the 5th. It gives the whole 9 weeks for students to have the consistency. I agree with the other two gentlemen. The whole time, that way they're not being pulled in several different directions trying to get NTI work finished, and then now starting back to school and having new things going on then and whatnot. So I agree. I think we should go back November 5th.
Thank you so much. I appreciate that. I'm glad to hear from a parent.
Yes.
Thank you.
Thank you. Thank you, Mandy. Mr. Johnson.
Hey guys, can you all hear me?
Yes,
Yeah.
sir.
First of all, I want to say thank you, and that I do not envy any school board member at this point in the middle of all this. There are no right answers, none. You just have to make the best decision that you can. I would agree with what everybody else has said. As both a teacher and a parent, I would prefer to see us do the first 9 weeks just for planning purposes, as both a teacher and a parent. to be able to have a game plan in place rather than that game plan changing day by day, week by week, that sort of thing. So you guys know I'm the band director, and it's pretty hard to do what I do virtually. We make it work, but there isn't anybody that wants to be in front of the kids more than I do. But I think realistically, we have to look at it and make the best decision that we can for kids and parents and teachers. And I think that would be to hold off at least that first 9 weeks and to do that. Again, I appreciate you all very much and do not envy you.
Thank you so much. We appreciate your input.
Thank you, John. Courtney Bricky.
Good evening. Thank you for having me. I also agree with what I've been hearing about having that consistency with kids. As a teacher and speaking with fellow teachers, I know that we are all anxious and eager to start back to in-person class. I'm very pleased with the new platforms that we have for NTI, but it isn't a replacement for in-class instruction. However, with the inconsistency of this virus, it's hard to determine if we started September 28th, just go a couple weeks and be out, and the on again, off again is very difficult, I think, for everyone. So I agree with what's been said with that. However, if we did decide to go back, I've been very pleased with just our meetings in the reopening committee with the safety guidelines that have been put in place, how we're trying to follow the CDC and KDE guidelines, and I would be very comfortable going back. If we did decide to try after September 28th, but that's just my opinion on both sides. I think there's pros and cons to both, but I do agree with the point about the consistency. The only concern that hasn't been mentioned is if we did choose to go back after that November 5th, it's just a couple weeks, then we're off for that Thanksgiving break for a whole week. And families will be gathering together and getting together. So, I wonder about if there wouldn't be possible outbreaks and have to close down again after that. So looking at that perspective of it, and then seeing how we could have the whole month of October if things went well, that might be a reason to maybe start back sooner. But I really, either way has pros and cons, so I can't really choose one, but that's my thoughts on both.
Thank you.
Thank you so much.
Thank you, Courtney. And you brought up a great point there. And I think at one time we had talked a little bit about that. It might not have been the Christmas break. It might have been fall break. We talked about people going back and forth. And that's one of those things to consider. But it's also one of those things that's almost out of our control. When you got Thanksgiving break, I think that's the 23rd. I have it on my calendar here. Yes, week of the 23rd. Typical school calendar, the end of November through the end of December is just crazy because you get 3 or 4 weeks there, depending on when the Thanksgiving falls in. But that you have school, Thanksgiving, you have Thanksgiving breaks, school for a few weeks, and then Christmas break. So it's a tough time of year on a regular year, let alone during a pandemic. Thank you, Courtney. I appreciate that.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Kathy Cook.
I have to say that I agree with everybody else as being a parent, a first grade teacher, having little ones in the classroom. I really prefer to wait and go back until November 5th if we could do that. I think that the consistency of being on NTI and letting our parents know and letting our kids know as we transition back in for the Meet the Teacher and passing out materials, I think if we could let them know that deadline, then they could work their schedules a little bit better also.
Thank you so much.
Thank you, Kathy. Ms. Parsons, Laura Parsons.
Yes, thank you all. Just to reiterate what everybody else has said, we appreciate just the opportunity to voice our concerns and opinions. And I would agree with everyone else's thoughts that waiting until November 5th just gives us the opportunity to work out the kinks that are going to come up with the technology and that sort of thing, and to get some good habits developed so that we can make the best use of that time. And then I think from what I've heard from other elementary teachers, it's been easier for them to figure out how to be socially distanced, easier than for the middle school and high school. And so starting back in closer quarters is a little concerning also. So I do like the idea of wait until November 5th.
Thank you.
Thank you, Laura.
Thank you.
Mr. Sean Thornberry.
Yes, thank you guys for giving me the opportunity to participate in this discussion. I think everybody has summed it up pretty well so far. The consistency is obviously really important, I think, to parents. Having a date that we know we can work with and move towards makes a lot of sense. You know, there's, like Mr. Johnson said, there is not a good answer here. I mean, when we look at losing 8 to 9 weeks at the end of last year and having to be under NTI instruction, you know, the first 9 weeks, even though it's going to be a lot better than it was before, that's a lot of time for kids not to be able to be in school. And I hate that for them, but I agree with everyone. I feel like the safest answer is for us to look at that November date.
Congratulations on your position.
Yes, welcome back.
Thank you.
Welcome home.
Welcome home.
Glad to be back.
Thank you for your input.
Thank you, Sean.
Thank you.
Katie Phillips.
I agree with what everyone else has said for the most part. I think there's pros and cons to both dates. You know, thinking from an elementary standpoint, we have several kids that are going to be working offline because they don't have the internet, and they will be working an entire week behind the rest of our class. And I think if we go back on the 28th and then they are a week behind and we have to stop and start, you know, due to quarantine or whatever reason, I think that will be a really difficult transition for elementary kids. So I personally think, and after talking to some of the other Canonsburg teachers, that the 9 weeks is the best way to go for NTI.
Thank you, Katie. Katie brought up the point, and I think I've briefly shared it. I know I shared it with Linda about their kids that don't have internet access. However, there was an announcement made today by the Lieutenant Governor. I did not hear it. Something about some internet access that might be available or cost deferral. And I'm saying this not knowing what was said at all, but that was supposed to be announced today. But we have our students who do not have internet access. We will have them a jump drive, a thumb drive available. So they will be a week behind on assignments, and each child will receive 2 of the thumb drives, and it'll be a passing back and forth of the thumb drive, so the teacher can, you know, they'll send the assignments home, and we'll get that home one way or the other. If the parent can't pick them up, we'll get them out there to them. A lot of our elementary principals, especially, have talked about taking them out themselves so they can make that contact with them, because they live in, you know, the smaller district for the, you know, within their small elementary district. So they'll do something like that, or we can bus them out. We can have, you know, I have to take them out. That's not a problem. But then we'll leave the new jump drive with them. They'll hand us the jump drive that they've been working on over the past week, and we'll get that back to the teachers. So that's the process that we have in place for students who do not have internet technology. Is it perfect? No, but it allows for some, or allows for them to continue their education and continue their learning. Also, right now, I believe I have 11 churches on board that are going to open up their internet access in their parking lots. Still working on businesses. I don't foresee a problem with some of our local businesses, but to be quite frank with you, a lot of those churches and businesses where they're located at right now, there's not as many internet access. There may be some students and parents who might not be able to afford the internet, but the access is pretty good. You know, we need internet access, to borrow a phrase from a superintendent friend of mine. We need internet access up in the holler, and that's our problem. You know, that's a problem in Eastern Kentucky. It's a problem in a lot of you know, rural areas, so you know, we're trying to combat that. We're trying to you know, work with our community partners, people in the community, and if we can't get that internet access, we have the jump drives for our students. So we have a plan in place for them. Again, not perfect, but there is a plan in place for them. Let's see, Becky Golden. Is Becky here? I think I may have missed her. I hope I sent her the link. If not, she'll get me. I tried my best to make sure I got it. I double checked it, but I was not like Santa Claus and triple checked it. So, all right. Well, Becky might not be able to make it for us. Melanie Kelly. I know she was the first person on the board meeting or on the meeting with me. Miss Kelly.
Hi, I'm here. I was having a hard time getting my mic unmuted. Thank you, everybody, for allowing the committee to voice our concerns and our opinions. And I am at baseball practice with one of my boys. You're going to hear him get in the car here in just a second, so please excuse that. So
I know your boys.
Yes, and you're about to meet Joshua. So this is as a parent and a teacher, I'm very thankful to have the opportunity to represent the littlest lions in our district. But I agree with the consistency 100%, especially with the children at the preschool. We know that consistency is the best thing for them and their social emotional development, because of separation anxiety. School, they get situated, and then we have to close down again, and then we have to go through all of that separation anxiety and trusting the adults in the classroom again. Of course, that does go into elementary, and it does go into elementary and some older students too, I'm sure. But we do experience that at the preschool.